Welcome everybody to Palace Off the Top Rope presents SmackDown. This is episode number 4, which took place on September 9th, 1999, emanating from Albany, New York. Now, before I get into running down what happened on this show, I just want to state for the record, in my personal opinion, and I know we're only 4 episodes into this thing, but this is by far and away the best episode of SmackDown ever, top to bottom. There's so much shit happening on this show, and everything makes sense. Like, all of it. Like, from the backstage skits, to the matches, to the results, to a main event that just blows everything out of the water. This could have been on a pay-per-view, and for a while, and at least for this week, SmackDown looked like the A show over Raw. Like, Raw was just like whatever this week. But this episode of SmackDown looked like the show to be on. And a little bit of spoilers before I get into it. This is going to be the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's been gone away for a couple of weeks. But yeah, if this is any indication of SmackDown when it moves to Fox later this year, in October, if they make it into the A show, it's got to be like this. They got to rewatch their own history and see what they can do with material and the talent. Just everything top to bottom on this show was fucking awesome, and it's the best show I've seen so far in this SmackDown rewatch. I know there's over 1,000 episodes. This is going to take forever for me to complete this spin-off show, but 4th episode in. This is peak Attitude Era already, baby, and I freaking love it. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this show. So they open up, they do the fireworks in the intro, and right away they cut to a shot of Kane arriving in the building. You know, he's in street clothes, but he's got the mask on. And, you know, right away you see a car pulling up, and out comes Triple H and Chyna with a sledgehammer. They attack him immediately, beating down on Kane. And quickly, the Big Show and Undertaker come in for the save. What's going on there? I mean, we've been seeing for the past few weeks, like, Undertaker and Big Show are just, like, taunting Kane or watching him from afar. Like, what's going on here? We don't know. Like, is it just Undertaker continuing to look out for his younger brother? Not sure what it is, but we got to continue on with the show. So right away, we cut to a promo with the Big Boss Man, who's talking about how he's the top dog now. And just to reiterate from the previous episode, yes, Big Boss Man cooked Al Snow's dog Pepper and then met him up at a hotel and fed it to him. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen happen in the history of WWE. It's basically Big Boss Man talking about how crazy he is. And if he can do that to Al Snow and his dog, like, who knows what else he's capable of doing. So he basically here opens up an open challenge for the hardcore title. And he's talking about how he wants any dog lovers out there to come out and try to, like, fight him and take his title. And out of nowhere, this brings out the returning British Bulldog, who hasn't been seen in WWE since about late 97, whenever the fallout from Bret the Hitman Hart getting screwed over at Survivor Series. He's back. Has the look. He looks different. He's got, the jeans, tennies, and then just like a cut-off like sweatshirt or cut-off hoodie, something like that to that effect. He's not wearing the red, white, and blue England tights, gone are the braids and all that stuff from how he was like in the early 90s, and even from late 97 when he was in the Hart Foundation. Just completely revitalized, completely different energy. Crowd pops big for him because obviously we haven't seen him in a while. He did a little stint in WCW, but that didn't last long. Anyways, he comes out, him and Big Boss Man go at it for a little while, so here we go, hardcore titles on the line. They battle to the outside and to the crowd a little bit, but then they come back into the ring. Big Boss Man brings in a chair, tries to nail the Bulldog. The Bulldog stops him. Wham! Knocks him straight in the head with the steel chair. Bulldog grabs the Boss Man's nightstick and does a running elbow with the nightstick in hand. pins Big Boss Man 1, 2, 3, and the returning British Bulldog is now the WWE Hardcore Champion. This brings out Al Snow, who's been, he's still like distraught over what happened with him having to eat his dog and just dealing with the depression on that. So this past Monday night on Raw, he was coming out in different personas that he's been in WWE, because this isn't the only time Al Snow has been in WWE. He's come out as different characters. So I forgot what the character he was on Monday, but then when he came out on SmackDown, he used to be tag team partners with Marty Jannetty. They were kind of like the New Rockers, but back then his name was Leif Cassidy. So he comes out dressed as the New Rocker, and he's coming out and he's all over the Big Boss Man. He has some notes that he's writing on paper, and he shoves a note down Boss Man's throat. Just doesn't know who he is, and he's walking around. And the British Bulldog is watching from the rampway. He does trying to figure out what's going on. Anyways, Al Snow makes his way up the ramp, comes face to face with the British Bulldog, and out of nowhere, the British Bulldog just hands him the Hardcore title. And the British Bulldog's off on his way, and Al Snow, I guess, is just the Hardcore Champion now again. Pretty weird, but it's the Hardcore title. It's not a belt to be taken serious. So that's the end of that segment. We cut to a shot of the outside arena where Kane is by Triple H's car, where he had gotten attacked at the beginning of the show. He's got a tank full of gas, and he's pouring it on the car. Boom, boom, boom. It looks like he's going to set Triple H's car on fire. The idiot Triple H shows up, runs real quickly into the passenger side because he left his championship belt in there. And as he's grabbing it, Kane's starting to douse him with gasoline. And then Chyna's also there. And then Kane starts to douse her with gasoline. And then they cut to commercial break. It seems like Kane's going to set them on fire. Obviously, that doesn't happen, but they cut to commercial anyway. When we come back from the break, it's Edge and Christian, who are being followed by Stevie Richards for some reason. They are going to be taking on the New Brood, which is, of course, the Hardy Boys, along with Gangrel. Edge and Christian during this time are just continuing to just look at Stevie Richards and wonder why he's like there with him. Edge and Christian are the number one contenders for the tag team titles. They won their matchup with the Acolytes on this past Monday night's Raw. On SmackDown, the previous episode, we all saw I talked to you about the tag team turmoil match, which ended in chaos because of the Dudley Boys debuting and just wrecking havoc. So they had a match with the Acolytes on Raw. They won. So Edge and Christian are now the number one contenders. They're having this match with the Hardy Boys. We're going to be seeing a lot of this upcoming later on in the year. And then, of course, 2000 is just a unbelievable year for these tag teams, leading up to the first ever TLC match at SummerSlam later next year. So this is a good start here to building up their rivalry. I can easily say this is wrestling-wise, this was the best match. But if we're talking overall, like WWE entertainment, just superstar match, that's the main event. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this was a good wrestling match. It's back and forth. Gangrel tries to, interfere, but Stevie Richards intervenes, and Edge and Christian pick up the win over the Hardy Boys. The lights go out immediately after this match is over, and when the lights come back up, Kane is in the ring, crowd is going crazy, starts beating up on everyone. He's threatening Triple H, and he says he's going to burn the flesh from his body, which I guess he's going to try to set him on fire. I guess that's his goal for tonight. We cut to a backstage interview where Lillian Garcia is trying to interview the British Bulldog, but he's, leaving the arena, and he's not really giving any answers. He's trying to, motion her to go away, and, we get nothing as of why the British Bulldog gave up the Hardcore Championship. Exits the arena, and that's the last we hear of that. We go to commercial break. When we come back, Triple H is getting interviewed by Lillian Garcia. And Triple H is obviously pissed from what happened earlier, getting doused with gasoline. But, he deserved it. That's what he gets for trying to attack Kane when he's arriving into the building. You don't even let him get inside, and you try to attack him with a sledgehammer. Anyways, Triple H is talking about how, Kane says he's going to burn his flesh. Triple H says he's going to bloody him up. And it looks like we got officially a WWE title match between Triple H and Kane for later on in the evening. Up next, we got a promo from X-Pac, who says he has something to say to Kane, so he calls him out right away. So this is a very Kane-heavy show. And it's interesting how they focus on certain wrestlers. That's a trend I'm starting to see. Like, every week, somebody's getting their, they're getting their spot. So a lot of this episode has got a lot of Kane involvement. It's basically X-Pac ending their tag team partnership. He told Kane not to get involved in this match last week, even though it was a post-match beatdown from the Big Show. He still got involved. X-Pac didn't like that. He said it's better for them to be separate. Kane's going to be better off. And while this is going on, the Big Show and the Undertaker are watching in the back. Undertaker obviously looks happy with this. And that's the setup right there. Kane's a bit distraught. He doesn't know how to feel. He looks like X-Pac's also ending his friendship with him for some reason. Kane's starting to feel a little bit down. We cut to a backstage segment with Chris Jericho and Howard Finkel arriving in Lucha Libre masks. And they're speaking in Spanish, the both of them, which I thought was a pretty hilarious touch. They're obviously hiding from Ken Shamrock, who's still on the warpath and trying to get his hands on him. Up next, we have the Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly making their way to the ring. Crash Holly is carrying a weight scale with him, which is a funny bit that I'm enjoying this commitment to it by them. It's basically how they're saying they're super heavyweights, right? So anybody that they want to fight, they have to have them step on that scale and see if they meet the requirements to fight them, because they think they're super heavyweights. And whatever, it's a goofy bit, but they're committed to it, and it works for them. So Hardcore Holly's talking about how he's looking for a fight and, challenging anybody in the back. And out of nowhere, Chyna interrupts and makes her way down to the ring. And Hardcore Holly's just, the way they treat women here is obviously not good. But this is 1999, so nobody said anything back then, so they could get away with whatever they want. Obviously, WWE would never do this now in 2019 because they'd be in a lot of trouble with sponsors and all that. But Hardcore Holly's just running down Chyna and just saying like how he doesn't fight women and just degrading her and just saying, but if she were a man, and he starts making fun of her breasts and the silicone, saying like there would be enough weight there for her to match weight and he can fight her, but since he doesn't fight women, he's not going to. This leads to Chyna nailing Hardcore Holly with the scale after he turns his back to her, and we get a match anyway. So it's funny how like a lot of these segments have been like, no, there's not going to be a match and I don't want to have this match, but then the bell rings and there is a match. So that's it's nitpicky, but it's also like you don't care because like the characters are all fun and you want to see like just wrestling in general. So we get this matchup with Chyna versus Hardcore Holly. It's not that very long because Jeff Jarrett quickly interferes, and he's trying to get one up on Chyna. Billy Gunn comes down for the save. We saw him get back at Triple H on Monday, but it looks like he's coming to Chyna's aid, and he's gonna help her out. The announcers are talking about how they've been friends for a very long time, and then out of nowhere, Billy Gunn gives Chyna the famous her, and we quickly learn he's a bastard again. So not really sure how we're supposed to feel about Billy Gunn. It looks like he's going to be a good guy on one night on Monday against Triple H, and then here, Chyna's is playing the good guy role in this IC title feud with Jarrett, but then he attacks her and gives her his move. So not really sure how we're supposed to feel about this guy. We cut to a shot of X-Pac leaving the building, obviously distraught. But he's the one that ended the friendship and the partnership, so this is on him. And then they cut to another shot of Kane, who's like depressed somewhere, sitting down, just moping. Again, like I said, a very Kane heavy episode. And it's okay because you're getting to get more in touch with Kane's emotions and how he's feeling as a character. There's depth here. WWE tried in the 90s, the late 90s, and the Attitude Era. There's just so much attention given to detail on these characters and their, just all these evolving things with feelings and all that. It's great to see here. So obviously Kane's, sad, and, he lost his friend, and he's got a championship match coming up, so he can't be sad for too long. We cut to The Rock and Mankind arriving to the arena. Rock has a funny line here to Mankind, and God, The Rock is just so good with his banter. And so the line is, The Rock tells Mankind, like, hey, like, The Rock let you ride in the trunk of his limousine. Like, Mankind is just such whatever to him that he's only going to allow him to, like, ride with him if he rides in the trunk. Like, and Mankind is also great with the banter, too, because he's like, no, I didn't mind, but, they're just going back and forth. And, again, the Rock and Sock connection is starting to fully grow here in the late part of 99, and it's one of the best parts of the Attitude Era. So there's that quick segment. It's over. We cut to the next match, which is going to be Bradshaw versus Bubba Ray Dudley. This match is full-on guys just beating the shit out of each other. The Dudleys cost the Acolytes the Tag Team Turmoil match on the previous episode of SmackDown and on Monday Night Raw. When they lost to Edge and Christian, the Dudleys attacked them from behind, and this is what's leading to this one-on-one matchup. So anyway, they're just beating the shit out of each other, right? And it doesn't last for very long because Devon interferes with the Dudleys, and then Farouk makes his way in, and then these two teams are just starting to beat the shit out of each other, and it's just so bad because it's bad and it's all like out of control when the referees and the officials jump in and try to just try to separate and stop all the chaos. And you could tell that these two teams are either headed for a matchup at Unforgiven, if I remember correctly, or I forgot if it's on an episode of Raw, but I think it's at the pay-per-view. So either way, they're setting this up really good. These two hard-hitting teams to clash in a big tag team match. Up next, we have a interview with Lillian Garcia and the Big Boss Man. Obviously, the Boss Man is super pissed because he lost his hardcore title to the British Bulldog, who in turn handed the title to Al Snow, which makes Boss Man even more pissed, talking about how he's going to get revenge on these two and how long they've been working together or whatnot. And just, I think there's like a bleep in this spot. I don't know. I think Big Boss Man like got carried away and cursed for some reason. But this is network TV, so they blur out any bad words. It's not like Monday Night Raw where they could get away with. This was late 90s, and I remember them when they said shit. Like, I thought they would blur that back in the day. Now everybody says whatever on TV. But back in the day, like, if that slip came out on TV, it was like a big, big deal. But they blur it here on network TV, it was on UPN. So, of course, it had to get blurred out. So that's the end of that interview real quick. Up next, we have Test and Stephanie, who are out for a promo. Stephanie quickly calls out for her mom, Linda, and Patterson and Briscoe because they have an announcement to tell them. And what that announcement is that they've decided a wedding date. And it's going to be on October 11th, which will be on an episode of Raw. We'll see if that pans out because weddings in WWE usually do not go well. After the announcement is made, this brings out the Mean Street Posse. And just as they're about to get into it with Test and with Patterson and Briscoe, Shane McMahon comes out. And he tells the posse to stay away. He says, you guys know how serious I am, and you know when I'm serious. And he tells them to go away. And here is where I think is some of Shane McMahon's best work. And a reason why a lot of this episode is working, because he's not heavily involved except for this one segment. But he's really good here. He gives a promo about how, he's just apologizing for everything that happened with Test and all the manipulating and everything that he did to Stephanie. And he said it's hard for a brother seeing his sister grow up into like a young woman, and he says it's her decision to make and what she wants to do with her life, and that he supports her and that he's sorry. Crowd is like chanting asshole at him this whole time, but Shane's real good here. He caters to the crowd, says, you know what, I deserve that. Go ahead and keep calling me an asshole. I deserve it. But this was one of Shane McMahon's really good performances here. I'll give him credit. He's usually only good for the matches that he's in, but for promos, he's kind of hit and miss, but here he's like really good. and apologizes and, tells Tess, just make sure you treat her right and we're not going to have any problems. And he extends his hand out to Tess, and Tess shakes it, and it looks like we're going for a babyface turn here for Shane, because we don't see him at all in the rest of this segment with Triple H and all hell that's breaking loose in the championship contender area. So that was a pretty good segment for Shane. I really liked that a lot. We cut to a backstage segment with Kane walking with a blowtorch, and that's never addressed again, so that was a weird segment that they filmed there. We cut to an interview with Lillian Garcia, who's with The Rock and Mankind. Obviously, again, just good promo work here by The Rock and Mankind to buffer up their main event match coming up later on SmackDown. Rock's got a good zinger here on Lillian Garcia. She's starting to come into her own. She's getting comfortable. But The Rock's still The Rock. And him and Lillian get into a really interesting relationship-wise as a wrestler and interviewer. But here he's still super mean to her, so he gives the line out. He's like, "Hey Lillian, do you got that little feeling in the pit of your stomach? You got goosebumps running up and down your body?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." And The Rock's like, "Well, goosebump your ass out of here." It's The Rock is just so good. He's in top form, and again, him and Mankind are just continuing the banter. They're a good tag team. They got good chemistry, and that's the interview. Up next, we have the WWE Championship match between Triple H and Kane. Now, after all this buildup of Kane and Triple H throughout the night, we have to have a match, right? And I'm going to go on record and state that Triple H and Kane have never had a good match, ever. And they fought so many times throughout the years, and they even fought at WrestleMania 15, which was earlier in the year. Their matches are always really bad. It's like their styles just do not work with each other. To the point where I was just noticing different things in this match. There's a point where they're outside of the ring and they're walking around one of the sides, and I noticed that the Sunday Night Heat apron is on one of the sides of the ring instead of the SmackDown one, and I'm like, whoa, that's a flub that they should have noticed, and because obviously it's not Sunday Night Heat, it's SmackDown, so they forgot to change that out. But it's not on the camera side, so you never see it up until that point when Triple H and Kane are walking around by it. So I noticed that. It shows you how much interest I had in the match. The match is whatever. The Kane is starting to get the final shots in on Triple H. Chyna's down there. She had brought a sledgehammer down to the ring, and then nails Kane in the back when the ref's not looking. Triple H is able to hit the pedigree, pins him 1, 2, 3. Triple H retains the title. Lights go out immediately again, and the Big Show and Taker come out to aid Kane. And it ends there. Kane gets back up, and it leads to a stare down between all three. Again, we still don't know what the motivations are for Big Show and Taker. Is, again, Taker just looking out for Kane? Like, what the hell's going on? We need to know. And again, Undertaker just looks off here. And I know he's going to wrestle in the main event, but him and Big Show are walking to the ring, right? Or they come out right during this Triple H segment while he's trying to continue to beat on Kane. And you can tell that the Undertaker is hurt because you can tell by the way he's walking. You can tell he's got a limp. And like I said, he's about to go away for a very long time. And I think it's only a matter of time before we just don't see him anymore. And you won't be hearing about him on this show for quite a long time. We cut to a segment in the back. Shamrock, again, still looking for Chris Jericho. He's causing, temper tantrums in the back. Just wants a piece of Jericho. And this leads to Shamrock coming out, just calling for Jericho. Said, let's just come out and fight. Let's get this over with. And Jericho's music hits. And Jericho doesn't show up to the entranceway. So Shamrock is making his way up. And just as he's about to go to the back, we see Jericho descending into the ring in a black cage. So that way Shamrock can't even get his hands on him. So Jericho's looking real good here because he's a really good talker. And, he's just jabbing at Shamrock this whole time. And he's signaling that he's had enough of Shamrock and he wants the cage to be raised up. So he's calling for Howard Finkel. but he's distracted in the back by Lillian Garcia because they've been going at it. They've been having a little bit of a rivalry, just like he's had with all the ring announcers. And they're going at it, so he's not paying attention. And Jericho's caught in this cage, and Shamrock's going crazy. And Jericho's like, "You idiot, this is steel. What are you going to do?" And Shamrock goes into this big tirade, and he gets so mad that he's able to bend the bars on one of the steel cage, takes Jericho out, finally gets his hands on him. Crowd goes crazy because it's kind of been building up for a little bit. Shamrock hasn't been able to get his hands on Jericho, but finally he does. And out comes the officials real quick to separate the two. Jericho runs out of the way, runs backstage, and we go to commercial break on that one. And then when we come back, Chris Jericho and Howard Finkel are again running from the scene. He's having, he wants Finkel to put his bags in the car. And Jericho gets in the car, and as he's driving away, he stops and he tells Finkel, who hasn't gotten in the car, he's like, "You know what, all this stuff about mentorship and all this stuff, like, it's whatever, it's over. Like, you're an idiot, you're fired." And Jericho just, like, flees away. So I think that's the end of that little, I guess, friendship there that they had going, or mentorship or whatever. So Jericho fires Howard Finkel, and looks like we're heading towards Chris Jericho versus Ken Shamrock at Unforgiven, but we'll see, because I think that's not what ends up happening. But stay tuned as we get closer to Unforgiven. Up next, we got Jeff Jarrett, who's plays a good heel here in this next segment. He's out for a promo, and he's degrading women and talking about how they belong in the kitchen and pregnant and barefoot. Just awful stuff here from him. He notices Fabulous Moolah, who's in the audience with Mae Young. These are obviously older wrestlers. They haven't wrestled obviously forever. They're really old. And Jarrett invites her into the ring, and just wants the crowd to just give this woman the ovation she deserves and all the accolades or whatever. And then Jarrett tells Moolah, that Chyna, back in her day, like, she wouldn't fight a man, right? And Moolah's like, well, only because she knew she would have kicked their asses back in the day, just like Chyna's going to kick his ass at Unforgiven. This obviously pisses off Jeff Jarrett. We know what's coming. Here comes the guitar shot. Nails Moolah straight over the head in a shot that just looks like the worst thing ever. Like, man, like, I don't know how Moolah probably got a concussion from that. I know those guitars were probably fixed, but it still looked pretty bad. Mae Young, who is sitting in the audience with her, decides to jump into the ring and try to get at Jarrett. Excuse me. But Jarrett's able to, stop her, lays her down, puts her in the figure 4. She's screaming in pain. Deborah and Miss Kitty are also in the ring at this point, and they're just pissed at what's going on here. And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Again, just good setup here for the Jarrett-Chyna match, which is going to be coming up at Unforgiven for the Intercontinental Championship. Man, Jeff Jarrett's a bastard. Up next, we got a quick promo for a porno. Yes, folks, that's what the character of Val Venus is. Back in the Attitude Era, he was a porn star, so he does a little segment here. And he's talking about weapons, which he's getting into a feud with Steve Blackman, as we saw on the previous episode, after he attacked him after his match. So Val Venus is talking about weapons, and he has his own. He doesn't use weapons for destruction. He uses his weapons for pleasure. La da la da da. Whatever. This was really quick. It was like a 30-second thing. So, yeah, that's the world that we were in 1999. And finally, now we have the main event, the most fun main event in SmackDown. We're 4 episodes in, but this is just unbelievable. Are you ready for this, folks? It's a buried alive match for the WWE Tag Team titles. It's Big Show and The Undertaker challenging The Rock and Mankind. This match is total chaos, and I don't know why WWE hasn't done this match in the recent days. I know Burying Alive, that's like a really dark, what is it? What's the word I want to say here? It's a dark gimmick. You're burying somebody alive. And I think the last time they did this match, I want to say, was in 2003 with The Undertaker and Vince McMahon. I think so. If my history and my knowledge of WWE history is correct, yeah, that's the last time they did it. But this was a fun match. This should always be like a multi-man match. It shouldn't just be between two people. That could get boring. But if you have multiple people in this match, this is just a whole lot of fun. So there's no tagging, so it's all just whatever. So all four men are just going at it. It's crazy. It's up and down backstage in the arena. It's on the stage area. Mankind takes one of the sickest bumps from the stage to the graveyard area. So you have the main stage area, right? And then to like the right of it, they have like a graveyard site set up to where you can bury your opponent. And the Big Show throws Mankind from the stage to the graveyard site. And this is like a good 15 feet. And freaking Mankind flies straight in, bounces on the graveyard floor into the hole. Like, that was just one of the best, coolest spots I've ever seen. And when the SmackDown 20th anniversary show comes up in October when they go to Fox, I hope they've shown that highlight plenty, but I hope they show it again because this is just one of the standout moments in SmackDown history. This match is just so crazy. The Rock and Taker are fighting in the backstage area while that spot was going on. Triple H interferes and starts to beat The Rock from behind, but quickly Kane shows up and beats on Triple H. Chyna also shows up, tries to get at Kane, but Kane, gets distracted and goes after her. And I think Triple H leaves also. But man, there's so much going on in the WWE title pictures. All these characters getting together and intertwining. It's awesome. Like I said, it's been a Kane heavy show, so he's been involved throughout most of this. And this is the part where it gets weird, where it's a finish that doesn't make sense. So we got Big Show and Mankind who are fighting in the graveyard area, right? I think Rock and Taker are already doing their own thing. And Triple H comes out with a sledgehammer. Now, I don't know what his intentions were here. And what he does next doesn't make sense. So he knocks out the Big Show with the sledgehammer, right? Who was already trying to bury Mankind, who's in the hole. And he knocks him out, right? But then he begins to bury Mankind and cover him up. And the ref calls for the bell. And the announcer actually says that we have new tag team champions, Big Show and Undertaker. Which then, why the hell did you knock out the Big Show anyway? Because did you want them to win anyway? If you did, that was just a dumb plan. So anyways, I think that's where we left off. So Big Show and Taker are now the tag team champions. At this point, Triple H is standing tall. And, an ambulance starts to pull up to the graveyard area from the arena floor. And, Triple H is going up to the ambulance. And the announcers are saying, like, well, who's Triple H going to put in this ambulance? Obviously, I thought it was there for Mankind since he's been buried alive. Triple H opens up the ambulance doors, and who pops out? None other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. The crowd goes absolutely fucking wild. Stone Cold Steve Austin starts beating the shit out of Triple H. Bam, bam, bam. All over the graveyard site. All over the staging area. Till finally he gets a hold of Triple H. Knocks him out. Throws him into the ambulance. Drives the ambulance all the way to the outside of the arena. He parks it somewhere like horizontally. And then we see Stone Cold Steve Austin walk up to a semi-truck. Gets into it. Turns it up, revs the engine, honks the horn, and wham, nails the ambulance head on about 2 or 3 times, smashes the ambulance with Triple H inside. And what an awesome way to end SmackDown, but what a better way for Stone Cold Steve Austin to return into the picture. Crowd is going crazy. It's going wild. What's going to happen next? We don't know. We're going to have to tune in either the Monday Night Raw or see what they show there, and then whatever happens on SmackDown next week. And that's the episode. That was awesome. This whole show was fire. It was 100, as the kids say. They kept it 100. Everything made sense. Everything was escalating. Everything was for a point. Everybody's coming after Triple H. It's getting real good. Like this is peak WWE right here. Man, I was so happy with this episode of SmackDown. Best one yet. It's gonna be hard for a show top to bottom to top this one, but we'll see what happens. This is the Attitude Era, so I'm sure it may. But as far as like, oh man, this is gonna be tough. Now, what a main event! I love that main event so much. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch on the network. If you don't want to watch the whole show, you should, because first of all, it's awesome, the whole show. But that main event is just awesome. I loved it a lot. And that's going to do it for this episode of Palace Off the Top Rope presents SmackDown. I've got one more episode to go before I match this up completely with the dates. And I will be giving these to you. They will be dropping as soon as, if it's an episode from September 20th, I'll give you the episode that aired from September 20th, 20 years ago. I'm going to match them with the dates. I want to do that so that way I'm not just, constantly throwing these episodes out one after the other. Yeah, there's a lot coming within the next day or two, but that's only because I'm trying to catch up. But thank you so much for joining me, you hardcore wrestling fans. I'm going to continue to watch these shows, but I'm on such a high from this one. I got to end it now. So thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.